Sunday dinner at my parents' apartment was always predictable. Mom's overcooked roast, Dad's lecture about responsibility, and my brother Ethan holding court about his latest promotion at the accounting firm. But tonight felt different. There was an edge to the conversation, a purposefulness to the way Dad kept steering topics back to real estate and family obligations. Real estate is family legacy, Dad was saying, cutting his meat with deliberate precision. When you own property, you're not just building wealth for yourself, you're building for the whole family. I sipped my wine and stayed quiet. At 31, I'd learned when Dad was building to something. Ethan's doing so well, Mom chimed in, beaming at my brother. Senior accountant at Morrison & Wells. A real career with real benefits. A real career. Unlike my freelance tech stuff, that had everyone convinced I was barely scraping by. Ethan leaned back, satisfaction radiating from him. It's been a good year. The firm's expanding and I'm heading the new audit division. Sarah and I are finally ready to upgrade our living situation. His wife Sarah nodded enthusiastically. We've outgrown our one-bedroom. With the baby coming, we need at least 2 bedrooms. Preferably something with good schools nearby. Which brings us to why we're here, Dad said, setting down his knife and fork with finality. Alyssa, your brother needs your apartment. I blinked. I'm sorry, what? Your apartment. The 2-bedroom on Parker Street. It's perfect for Ethan and Sarah's needs. Good neighborhood, near his office, plenty of space for the baby. Dad, I live there. Yes, but you're never home, Mom interjected. You're always traveling for those tech contracts. You barely use the space. Ethan needs it more than you do. He has a real career, Dad continued. A real family. Real responsibilities. You can find something smaller, something more appropriate for a single woman who's never in one place. The table fell silent, everyone looking at me expectantly. This was the moment I was supposed to agree to sacrifice for family, to be the good daughter who understood priorities. Instead, I pulled out my phone. Excuse me for 1 second. I scrolled to a contact and made a call right there at the table. Marcus? It's Alyssa Torres. Yes, I need you to send those documents we discussed. To my parents' address. Yes, tonight if possible. Perfect. Thanks. Dad's face reddened. Alyssa, we're having a family discussion. Put the phone away. I just did. That was my attorney. Your attorney? Ethan laughed. What, are you suing us for suggesting you move? No, I'm just clarifying some property ownership questions before this goes any further. Mom looked confused. Property ownership? What are you talking about? We'll know in about 20 minutes. Marcus is sending over some documents. I took another sip of wine. So, Ethan, congratulations on the promotion. What's the salary bump? That's not really, he started. $95,000 a year now, Sarah said proudly. Plus bonuses. It's really opened up our options. That's excellent, I said genuinely. You've worked hard for it. Dad cleared his throat, trying to regain control. As I was saying, we think the logical solution is for you to give Ethan your apartment. You can find something more suitable. Give him my apartment, I repeated slowly. Just, give it to him? Transfer the lease, Mom clarified. Or however it works. You're so good with paperwork and contracts from all your tech work. I'm sure you can figure it out. The landlord might require a new application, Dad mused. But with Ethan's credentials and stable career, that should be no problem. Much easier than some freelancer's application. The doorbell rang. That'll be Marcus's courier, I said, standing. Mom, do you mind if I get that? She waved toward the door, distracted by discussing baby furniture with Sarah. I opened the door to find a professional courier holding a large envelope. Alyssa Torres? That's me. Documents from Chin and Associates. I need a signature. I signed his tablet and took the envelope. Inside was exactly what I'd requested. Deed records, ownership documents, property tax statements. Everything certified and current. I walked back to the dining room and dropped the envelope on the table. What's this? Dad asked. Property ownership documentation. Since we're discussing me giving away my apartment, I thought everyone should understand exactly what they're asking for. I pulled out the first document. This is the deed to 847 Parker Street, Unit 304. My apartment. I set it in front of Dad. As you can see, I don't rent. I own it. Purchased it 4 years ago for $385,000. Current market value is approximately $520,000. The table went quiet. You own your apartment? Mom's voice was small. Yes. Bought it outright when I sold my first app to a tech company for $800,000. I pulled out another document. I also own Unit 501 in the same building, which I rent out for $2,400 a month. Ethan's face had gone pale. You own 2 apartments in that building? 3 actually. I placed another deed on the table. Unit 208. My first investment property. Rent is $2,200 a month. Sarah's mouth had fallen open. You're a landlord? I prefer real estate investor. And not just in that building. I pulled out more documents, laying them out like a poker hand. I own the duplex on Miller Avenue. The 4-unit building on Riverside. The commercial space on Main Street where that coffee shop is. And the townhouse on Oak that I renovated last year. Dad picked up one of the deeds with shaking hands. This says, you own 8 properties? 10 actually. These are just the local ones. I have 2 rental properties in Austin that aren't listed here. I sat back down and picked up my wine glass. So when you say I should give my apartment to Ethan because he has a real career, and I'm just doing freelance tech stuff, you should know that my stuff generates about $15,000 a month in rental income. Plus my consulting fees of $200 an hour. My gross annual income last year was $430,000. The silence was deafening. 400. Mom couldn't finish the sentence. 30,000, I completed. Before taxes. My net worth, including property equity, is approximately $2.8 million. Ethan looked like he'd been punched. That's not possible. You drive a 10-year-old Honda. Because I invest my money instead of spending it on status symbols. That Honda runs perfectly. Why would I take on a car payment when I could buy another property? But you always said you were just doing contract work, Sarah protested. You make it sound so casual, like you're barely getting by. I never said I was barely getting by. You all assumed that because I don't wear designer clothes or brag about my income. I pulled out one more document. Actually, there's something else you should see. I placed the final deed in front of Dad. He looked at it, blinked, looked again. This is the building we're in, he whispered. Yes. I bought this building 18 months ago when the previous owner wanted to retire. 6 units, all occupied with long-term tenants. I looked at my parents, including you. You're my tenants. Mom's hand flew to her mouth. We've been paying rent to you? To Silver Lake Property Management, which is my LLC. I kept it anonymous because I knew if you found out, you'd either refuse to pay or expect special treatment. This is insane, Ethan said, finding his voice. You've been secretly buying property and letting us think you're some struggling freelancer? I never said I was struggling. I just didn't advertise my success. And given that you were all ready to give away my apartment without even asking me, I'd say my instinct to keep quiet was correct. Dad's face had gone from red to white. Why didn't you tell us? Because of this. Because the moment you knew I had money, it would become family money. My assets would become resources you felt entitled to redistribute based on who you thought needed them more. That's not fair, Mom said. We're your family. We just want what's best for everyone. What's best for everyone, or what's best for Ethan? I looked at my brother. You needed a bigger apartment, so Dad decided I should give you mine. Did anyone ask if I was planning to use that space? Did anyone wonder if I had plans for it? You're never there, Ethan muttered. Because I'm working. Building my business. Managing my properties. Just because you don't see me doesn't mean I'm not doing anything. But a real career, Dad started. Ethan has a real career, I interrupted. So do I. His involves working for someone else and collecting a salary. Mine involves building assets and generating passive income. Both are valid. The difference is mine has apparently been invisible to you. Sarah spoke up quietly. So you're not going to give us the apartment? Give you my $520,000 asset so you can live in it? Well, definitely not. I softened slightly. But I do have a 2-bedroom unit in my Riverside building coming available next month. Market rate is $2,600, but I can offer you family rate of $2,200. First month, last month, and security deposit. Standard lease terms. You want us to rent from you? Ethan's voice was tight with humiliation. You need a 2-bedroom apartment. I have one available. This is me offering you housing at below market rate because you're family. That's actually generous, Ethan. It's not the same as giving us your apartment. No, it's not. Because your apartment is my home and my asset. I'm not giving it away because Dad decided your career is more real than mine. Dad stood abruptly. This whole thing is ridiculous. You can't possibly manage all these properties yourself. You're going to make mistakes, lose money. I've been doing it successfully for 6 years, Dad. I have a property manager for day-to-day issues. I have an accountant, an attorney, and a maintenance team. I run my real estate business like a business because that's what it is. Why didn't you come to us for advice? He demanded. I could have helped you. You just tried to give away my apartment without asking me. Would you really have been helpful? Or would you have tried to control how I invested? He had no answer. The dinner ended shortly after that. Ethan and Sarah left without saying goodbye. Mom kept touching the property documents like they might disappear. Dad retreated to his study overwhelmed. 3 days later, Mom called. Can we talk? Just you and me. We met for coffee at a neutral location. She looked tired, older somehow. I've been thinking about Sunday, she began. About what we asked you to do. To give away my apartment. Yes. She wrapped her hands around her cup. We were wrong. I see that now. We treated your home like it was something disposable, something we could redistribute because we didn't understand its value. Or my value, I said quietly. She flinched. You're right. We didn't see you clearly. We saw Ethan with his title and his office and his structured career, and we understood that. But you, with your contracts and your projects and your travel, we didn't understand it, so we dismissed it. As freelance tech stuff. I'm sorry. That was wrong. She looked at me directly. You built something remarkable, Alyssa. 10 properties. Millions of dollars. A real business. And we never even noticed. You noticed I drove an old car. We saw what we expected to see. The daughter who wasn't following a traditional path, so we assumed she was struggling. She paused. Your father is devastated. He keeps saying he failed you, that he should have known, should have paid attention. He failed by assuming Ethan's success was more valid than mine. Yes. He did. She took a shaky breath. I failed too. I'm your mother. I should have asked more questions, been more curious about your life. You should have asked before trying to give away my apartment. You're absolutely right. She pulled out a check and slid it across the table. This is 3 months' rent. Early payment. Because you're our landlord and we need to treat this like the business relationship it is. I looked at the check, surprised. Mom, you don't have to. Yes, I do. You kept our tenancy anonymous because you knew we'd take advantage if we knew. That tells me everything I need to know about how we've treated you. She stood to leave. I'm proud of you, Alyssa. I should have said that years ago. After she left, I sat with my coffee and the check, feeling something loosen in my chest. Ethan took longer to come around. 2 weeks after the dinner, he sent a text. Is that Riverside apartment still available? Yes, I replied. We'd like to see it. I showed them the apartment personally. It was nice. Renovated kitchen, good light, near a park. Sarah fell in love with the 2nd bedroom, already planning the nursery. What are the lease terms? Ethan asked, his voice carefully neutral. I handed him a standard lease agreement. 1 year minimum. Rent due on the 1st. Normal security deposit and references required. He read through it carefully. When he looked up, his expression was complicated. This is a really good deal. Below market rate. Family rate, I said simply. Why would you do that after everything? Because you're my brother. Because Sarah's pregnant. Because offering you housing at a fair price isn't the same as letting you take my home. He nodded slowly. For what it's worth, I'm sorry. About assuming. About dismissing your career. About all of it. Thank you. Dad was wrong. Your career is just as real as mine. Maybe more real since you built it from nothing. We both work hard, Ethan. Just in different ways. He signed the lease. They moved in 6 weeks later. I never mentioned that I could have charged $400 more per month. That wasn't the point. 6 months later, I sold 2 of my properties and bought a small apartment building in a developing neighborhood. 12 units, huge potential for appreciation. Dad called when he heard. That's a big purchase. Are you sure you know what you're doing? I'm sure, Dad. This is what I do. Pause. Would you want a second opinion? I know some things about real estate from my years managing corporate properties. It was an olive branch, clumsy but sincere. I'd appreciate that, I said. My inspection is next week. Want to come? I'd like that. He showed up with a notepad and asked intelligent questions. Pointed out things I'd missed. Actually listened when I explained my investment strategy. At the end he said, "You've got a good eye for value. This building will do well." Thanks, Dad. I'm sorry I didn't see it before. The empire you were building. It's not an empire. It's just smart investing and hard work. That's exactly what an empire is, he said. Just built quietly. A year after the disaster dinner, we gathered again at my parents' apartment. My building, my tenants. But this time the conversation was different. Ethan talked about his work and I talked about mine. Dad asked questions about my latest acquisition. Mom showed everyone photos of the grandbaby. Sarah thanked me for being flexible when they needed to break the lease early to buy their first house. You're buying? I asked, genuinely pleased. A small place, Ethan said. We've been saving aggressively. The baby made us realize we wanted our own space. That's wonderful. We learned from you, Sarah added. About building equity instead of just spending money. It changed how we think about finances. After dinner I stood on the balcony looking out at the city. Dad joined me. You changed things that night, he said. With the documents. The reveal. I set boundaries. You did. And we needed that. He paused. Your brother's different now. More intentional about money. More respectful of different paths to success. He had to learn the hard way that success isn't one size fits all. So did I. Dad looked at me. I'm proud of you, Alyssa. Not just for the properties or the money. For knowing your worth and not backing down when we tried to diminish it. My throat tightened. Thanks, Dad. We stood in comfortable silence watching the city lights. My city. My properties scattered across it like seeds I'd planted, growing into something solid and real. I'd built my empire quietly without fanfare or approval. And when my family tried to take it, I'd protected it fiercely. Not because I was cruel but because I knew my value. And now, finally, so did they.